झंझट सबसे कम। IIFL फाइनेंस, सीधी बात।
Tamil Nadu days, you made a mention about 1991 Tamil Nadu, so he was in CII Chennai that time. Mr. Munjal, Sanjeev Bajaj, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the National Council of CII, members who are present here, and I can see some of them participating through the virtual mode, and they can be seen on the screen. Now, I am actually delighted to be here this afternoon because perhaps this is the first public interaction I am doing in the physical mode after the pandemic. I don't know whether it is right to say after the pandemic, but hopefully I'm right and we will not see a recurrence of the kind of recurrences we have seen over the last 2 years. In fact, it is exactly 2 years today that we complete the first, experimental or the trial lockdown, a single-day lockdown which was observed on March 22nd, 2020. It was a Sunday. And I was just checking the calendar on the way, and I found that, today we are exactly 2 years, 21st March. And in last 2 years, the world has gone through a massive amount of transformation. And thanks to the developments which are now happening around Ukraine, I think the entire world is experiencing a great degree of transformation. COVID, followed by the geopolitical crisis, which has now come up around Ukraine. Technology has changed during this entire period. When the lockdown was introduced, I think there was a lot of apprehension how businesses, how government offices, and how various functions will go on in the economy. But thanks to technology, I think everything moved, and within a matter of weeks, the businesses got adjusted to it. COVID protocols were developed in our lives, in businesses, in any place which involved a congregation of more people. Even the marketing, the retail marketing also underwent substantial change. Business methods, business models have changed. COVID has produced a substantial impact on lives, livelihood, economies, and geopolitics. And economies and geopolitics, life and livelihood have also been impacted by the crisis now around Ukraine. Now, what I propose to do today is that I wish to speak for about 15 minutes or so, and I would like to just touch upon the RBI's approach during this entire period, and then come to the current situation and the way forward, the outlook. Of course, as far as monetary policy is concerned, or issues which are part of the monetary policy, I will not be able to speak much because, I don't want to preempt the monetary policy's decision. And also between now and 8th of April, it's still a long way. I think in the remaining, today we are on 20, so in the remaining 17, 18 days, I think many things can change. And today it is very difficult for me it is not appropriate for me to say something on monetary policy and then find that the situation changing, and it would be appropriate I leave it for the MPC. So I will not touch upon those issues. So broadly, therefore, I will first touch upon the COVID response of the Reserve Bank. Now, our first effort when the lockdown was introduced, in fact, by the first week of March of 2020, if you recall, some cases of COVID in India had been reported in Kerala to begin with, and a few other states. And by about middle of March, it became evident that we will not be immune to this new virus. So in RBI, the first thing that we did around middle of March, around 17th, 18th of March, the first thing we did is that, we were very conscious that the financial markets, the money markets, and all the markets which are in the regulatory jurisdiction of RBI, they should function normally. So we immediately decided to set up a quarantine facility outside Mumbai in Kharghar in our data center. We sanitized the whole place. And about 200 of our employees, RBI officers, staff, and service providers, which ultimately went up to about 250, they were put in quarantine. And that time the testing protocol, etc., had not developed, but we did a general checkup and they were put under quarantine. And within just matter of 3 to 4 days, we were able to put up that quarantine facility. We had hired a hotel, entire hotel had been hired where all these 250 people were put. So that was mainly to ensure that the markets, that is the money markets, the GSEC markets, the forex markets, they function normally, because it's quite possible that in the main, in our office, in the central office, people may get affected. So that was the first thing we did. And then going into policy around that time, also around 22nd, 23rd, we decided to advance the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. And we also decided, around that time, we did decide that, the central office building also, we decided to close down and sanitize it. And we activated our guest house which we have in Nepean Sea Road, not far from here, which became a kind of a parallel office only for the governor, deputy governors, and a very few senior officers. So that became a parallel office from where we functioned almost for 2 months, because we didn't want too many people to come to the office and risk themselves and cause risks to others. So, and on a need basis, other people were called, or we talked to them on, on the VC mode. And the first, so therefore the first emphasis was to see that the financial markets and the financial sector, they functioned normally. Infrastructure side, we had ensured that the markets, all our the markets, they run normally through the quarantine facility. So therefore we advanced the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, and parallelly we worked out other measures. And our approach, our focus was to reduce the cost of money. So we cut interest rates by the repo rate by 75 basis points. We had to see that the financial markets, which it appeared were freezing up, there was no activity in the financial markets happening, and within matter of a week or 10 days, the financial markets appeared to be freezing up. So we decided that liquidity should not be scarce, there should be abundant liquidity. So we announced liquidity infusion measures, through this long-term repo operations, the targeted repo operations, through which we injected huge amount of liquidity. And subsequently, as we went ahead, we announced other regulatory and other kind of dispensations and reliefs. But one interesting thing which we did, learning from past experience, that almost every announcement that was made, whether excepting perhaps the rate of interest reduction, interest rate reduction, excepting that, any liquidity infusion or any regulatory relief which had been given in terms of moratorium or in terms of restructuring of loans, everything had a sunset date. So all these reliefs, liquidity and other support system to the economy, they had a starting date, they had an end date. Because we didn't want to leave them open-ended and repeat the, the bitter experience and which we